A Mother's Journey with Autism, the beginning of my motherhood journey. Hi, my name is Sharifa, and before motherhood changed my life, I wore a very different uniform. For 10 years, I served as a family physician in the Malaysian Armed Forces, a role that demanded loyalty, discipline, and resilience. My career wasn't just a job, it was a big part of who I was. I took pride in helping others, making decisions under pressure, and wearing strength like armor. But in 2021, I made a decision that would transform my world completely. I left my profession, my title, my rank, my structured identity to become a full-time mother to my son, Zayan. What began as a pause in my medical career slowly became a calling that required even greater strength, patience, and courage. Motherhood humbled me. It peeled back layers of who I thought I was and taught me what it truly means to serve, not a system or a mission, but one small, precious human being who needed me in ways no one else could. Raising a neurodiverse child has been both challenging and beautiful experience of my life. That's why I created my YouTube channel, not just to share my story, but to build a community where parents, educators, and anyone touched by autism can find connection, understanding, and hope. Here, I share my motherhood story, the wins, the tears, the small victories, and the lessons that come with walking this path. My mission is simple: to remind other parents that they are not alone. Every child's journey is different. Every family's story is unique, but together we can lift each other up and make this road a little less lonely. Early sign of autism. How I discovered my son was autistic. I still remember those early years like they were yesterday. The confusion, the endless questions, and the quiet ache of not knowing what was happening. At first, I thought Zayan was just a little different, sensitive, unique, maybe just taking his time. But as months passed, small signs began to whisper that something deeper was going on. I started writing everything down, every behavior, every moment that didn't quite fit the typical milestones I saw in other children. Looking back, those notes became my roadmap, the beginning of our autism journey. The little rows of toys. It started with his toys. Instead of playing pretend like other kids, Zayan would line them up in perfect rows: cars, blocks, action figures, all neatly arranged, every piece facing the same way. If anyone touched them, he would cry as if his world had fallen apart. I used to sit beside him, watching, not understanding. There was order in his play, a kind of beauty in it, but I could sense that this was more than just a preference for neatness. Sensory struggles. Then came the sensory battles. Teeth brushing was a nightmare. He would scream and fight until both of us were exhausted, his little hands pushing mine away. I didn't realize at the time that the sensation of the toothbrush was painful for him. The struggle became so intense that he developed severe tooth decay. He also covered his ears at the sound of the vacuum, the blender, even birthday songs. Everyday sounds that felt normal to me were overwhelming for him. Motor challenges. Mealtimes were another clue. Zayan couldn't hold a spoon, and he refused to touch food with his hands. The feel of it seemed unbearable to him. Sometimes he'd just stare at his plate or play with his fingers completely disinterested. I kept thinking, maybe he's just picky. But deep down, I knew it was something more. Alone in his world. At the playground, while other children chased each other, Zayan would wander off, spinning wheels, watching leaves fall, or just sitting quietly in a corner. He didn't make eye contact, didn't respond when his name was called. It broke my heart to see him so close, yet so far away. The silence. By the time he turned 4, Zayan still hadn't spoken a single word. Not mama, not bye-bye. He communicated through sounds, humming, squealing, or crying. I waited and prayed for his voice, wondering if I was doing something wrong. The feeding struggles. He refused all solid foods, surviving only on formula milk. Even when he put food in his mouth, he wouldn't swallow. He would just hold it there until it melted or he spat it out. Mealtimes became emotional, filled with worry and guilt. I felt helpless watching him grow thinner, while the world around us didn't seem to understand. Big feelings in a small body. The tantrums came next, long, intense, and heartbreaking. I used to think he was angry, but over time I realized he was frustrated. He couldn't tell me what he needed, and that frustration spilled out through tears, screams, and sometimes throwing things. I learned not to take it personally. He wasn't being defiant, he was overwhelmed. When things broke. There were days when Zayan would suddenly throw or break things, the TV, my phone, his tablet. I used to cry, thinking, why is he doing this? But slowly I understood. It wasn't out of malice. It was his way of coping, of expressing something he couldn't yet say. Those were the signs, the ones that finally pushed me to seek answers. It was hard. I had my moment. The journey to diagnosis was long and emotional. But that moment, when the word autism entered our lives, it didn't break me. It gave me clarity. It gave me a language for what we'd been living through. And most importantly, it gave me a new way to see Zayan, not as a child who needed to be fixed, but as a child who needed to be understood. With love and gratitude, a mother who is growing every day.